Thank you. So I heard the key word obviously is data, and then understanding. When you look at AI, you can see all these data points, and for us at the end of the day, we're talking about, well, so what? What do these data points mean for us, right? And so the theme so far, when I've seen among your guys' answers, is like we will combine certain elements of both technology. My question is this, though, is how does that look? Like, for example, in the blockchain space, we know the blockchains are horrible at storing data. A blockchain itself is the worst store of data possible. They're slow and sluggish, and it takes time, as opposed to an AI is a complete opposite. So how does that merger look like? Is the AI connected to, let's say, oracles, and anytime a data is confirmed off-chain, then it will go into on-chain, then we timestamp that as this is the authentic data? How does that actual process look like when these two technologies come together?
Sure. I mean, at the end of the day, a blockchain is simply a data structure. And it's a kind of a, crappy one at that, right? It's unwieldy, it's slow, it's got latency issues. And so a lot of people are using machine learning algorithms embedded into the blocks to validate the proof of work or to track, anomaly patterns. And you're right, data should never be stored on public blockchains. Instead, what you are looking at specifically are transactions that are then turned into a numeric value of that hash encrypted and then put onto chain, so that if there's any kind of discrepancy in the chronology of when those hashes line up, you can be able to flag it and dig deeper and have a look at what's going on. For me, when I say that I am integrating AI data with blockchain features, I'm speaking specifically about the tokenomics and tokenizing it more as a business model and a new model of collaboration based on transparency versus any kind of data
like curated
management.
token registries.
Pardon me?
Curated token registries where people are staking their tokens?
Sure, that's right. Or using the attention economy, right? The old model is I push ads out to you and I make money off the eyeballs off of it, right? A blockchain says, well, you know what? You're going to help me generate this value, so I need your permission to have a look at this or take a quiz and look at this ad. And for that, I'll reward you with tokens, a fraction of what I earn, right? So there's different ways of doing it depending on specific use cases. What's exciting is not the data structure. I've heard people so many times say, I love blockchains, I don't like cryptos, and I think that's just pure ignorance. The best part of blockchains is cryptos. If you look at, blockchains as the internet of value, you can also look at cryptocurrencies as a democratization of value. And blockchains basically says that anyone who so chooses to do the work to add value to the network can then hold a piece of that value in their hand.
Thank you.
Well said.
Well, I can.
You don't have to go in order. Anyone can jump around. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll jump around.
It's a really, really good question. Blockchain is very slow, and this is, you can't have, the promise of AI is to have really these monstrous machines that can really, you feed it data, you can feed it models, and then you train the models, and then you can make decisions that way. The power of AI and blockchain is, or the power of blockchain in combination with AI is basically twofold. One of them is actually making the record of the events that happens, the AIs, the autonomous processes, the decisions that they make. You can actually take a record that nobody can debate, because it took place at certain circumstances and whatnot. And the second thing is basically the smart contracts. Smart contracts, you can actually enforce the AI to make certain decisions based on some triggers on the contracts itself, whether it is incentivizing the business process or the machine to make certain behaviors, or you want to tokenize assets that based on certain criteria, and then they can actually behave certain ways. So smart contracts are very, very powerful tools to work along AI. And we're seeing this, a lot of these things in the financial industry being implemented right now with hedge funds and whatnot in the crypto assets space. But back to your question, there's I think it's pretty known that pretty conclusive that we're not going to store data on the blockchain that is output from AI. It's basically how we can enforce certain rules through smart contracts onto the AI.
Cool. Thank you.
Do you think there will be a time when we can actually store it on blockchain though?
Well, we've seen a lot of innovations happening in this space. I think with I always refer to IPFS, one of the prominent, or like storage, and some of these new paradigms of trying to decentralize storage on the blockchain. Basically, you can bring your own storage, and then we have a protocol for us to distribute the storage across massive distributed mini storage areas. And if we have a lot of traction and contribution from the masses, then I see really big competition to the centralized Amazons of the world and whatnot. So there will be a certain point in time in the future where we will have enough storage to store data on a blockchain, right. Especially if the blockchain becomes fast enough and we have the scalability issue taken care of. And then to your point, there's another thing that is very, very important with AI is the proof of stake and proof of AI. Basically, now we have a proof of work to create the blocks. And then this is very inefficient, and this is the bottleneck for actually scalability of the blockchain. And then we're seeing a lot of really innovative ideas of, okay, how do we actually secure the transactions by kind of AI mechanism? Okay, so instead of having proof of work or even proof of stake, because proof of stake is that we need to have enough stake in the system to mine the transactions. So how can we have AI algorithm that we can really utilize in a very safe and efficient way to have a proof of,
See, we're about 5 years away. We're at least 5 years away from being able to store anything onto blockchains, right? All those file storing coins like storage and file, have you ever tried using them? It'll take you weeks to validate it.
Now, yeah.
So we use the machine learning. Instead of having proof of work, or using what most people do is a third-party chain off-site to actually audit through each of those hashes and transactions. You can use the machine learning for pattern or for anomaly detection for payments and settlements. And that's the most sort of direct use of machine learning that I find.
But here's a random question. Since these are open source, anyone can fork or copy that and start.
Exactly. And it's just you know what? And most of the stuff with AI, I'm sorry, works way better on a centralized graph or on dynamic knowledge tree. And this is very well recognized. Right?
But with the state of the technology right now, I totally agree with you, and that's why we're seeing a lot of innovations, a lot of ideas, a lot of minds kind of put together.
It would take you 2 weeks to put 1 gigabyte of data onto blockchain, and it wouldn't even be secure unless you're using a private chain.
I think one of the things we always talk about is when you look at any kind of solution on a blockchain is really understand the data architecture. What are you doing? How is it going to be used? Because I would argue, I would probably not want a lot of my data on the blockchain to begin with. There's certain data I would like to have off-chain for sure. There are certain rules and regulations and policies that are emerging like GDPR and others for privacy reasons where, in future privacy laws might be enacted where now you're screwed because you got the data on an immutable record, especially if it's on a public blockchain. But certainly what Susan was saying earlier in terms of hashing it, encrypting it, and those things are common mechanisms that are used to store certain data off-chain and only certain elements of it on-chain. Blockchain, to your point, Ameer, isn't really for large sums of data being stored on it. If you look at all the public blockchains, Bitcoin, Ethereum, it's not like they're very large, right? They're by design kind of nimble. So how long will it take before we can store data on a blockchain? I have no clue. But my fundamental question is, do I really even want to store some of that data on a blockchain? Probably not.
Add anything? No. All right.